let's talk Botox. As a professional esthetician and educator in the industry, it's something that I'm surrounded with. People are getting fillers, Botox, and I want to talk a little bit about the reasons why I decided that Botox was right for me about 10 years ago. I just started doing it and giving it a try because one of the biggest concerns I had was this fold or wrinkle on my forehead. I felt like as a plus size woman, I was pretty full in the cheeks and in the face, but the one area where I started to see aging occur was on my forehead. And the funny thing is, a friend of my mom's many years ago when I was 18 saw me scrunching, putting on mascara, and her advice to me was not to do it because I was going to regret it. And she was right. When I got to be in my 30s and 40s, you could see this frown line and this expression line, and it just started to bother me more and more and more. Well, in the meantime, Botox was a big thing. It was all over the industry. People were talking about it all the time. Over time, I started to realize that there was lots of testing, lots of studies done with it. So the dangers didn't concern me as the years went by. I gave it a try. And I would say that it made a slight difference. Again, I was still a little bit younger then. And so I was told that preventatively, if I kept it up, it would eventually help to minimize the line getting any deeper. And over time, I wouldn't even have to do it as much. Unfortunately, I didn't keep it up consistently. So I would have breaks of when I would do it and when I wouldn't do it. And then a few years ago, it started to bother me even more. I thought to myself, hey, it's about how I feel. It's not really about what anybody else thinks about whether it's right or wrong to do injectables. It's about how I feel. And if it makes me feel better about myself, why not do it? So I did it with an injector that was really, really good. And I got a nice little brow lift. And at first, I remember feeling it made me feel like I looked surprised. And that's just because I wasn't used to the look of it, but I was getting lots and lots of compliments. And I started to like it more and more. And so I've done it consistently over the last couple of years with just a little gap in the last 6 months. I went back, got it done last week because I wanted you guys to see the experience. Now, obviously, it can be more uncomfortable depending on who your injector is. And you don't always get the kind of lift that you're looking for with it if the person doesn't do it right. It's important to note that oftentimes different professionals have different ideas about how many units of Botox you need, and you're generally charged per unit. I've seen units across the country as little as $8 or $9 per unit. And in California, I wish it was that cheap. It is not. So it can be anywhere between $12 to $16 per unit in California. I generally end up with about 30 units, and I'll tell you why I end up with so many units. If you want to get rid of your 11s here in the middle, it's widely known that those lines are affected by what you do above them. So if you just do 20 units, that's usually not enough to get rid of deep lines above the forehead and below. And so if you do one, you have to do the other. You don't always have to do that. In fact, if you don't have any lines or those 11s in the middle of your forehead, you probably won't have to do more than 20 units. I usually come up around 30. Anytime I've tried to do less, I don't get the effect I'm looking for. This last time I was convinced to do the sides of my eye, and it really did bring the whole brow up, and I see the benefit of it. But really, the ones on the sides of the eye were preventative so that eventually those lines will start to come in. And then if you keep doing the Botox there, they're not as likely to come up as early. Eventually, at some point, you can't stop aging. It's going to happen. So that will slow the process down. But the chances of me doing it every single time on the sides of the eyes are not very high because I'm, again, a budget person and it's not something that bothers me. I probably want to stay around the $500 range as opposed to spending $700. I also travel for a living. So I'm going to be looking for a place outside of the Bay Area to get it done where it's done a little less expensively so that I can invest in doing it every 3 to 4 months, which is really what's needed. Here in the Bay Area, with the expense of it, I'll probably stretch it out 5 or 6 months in between doing it. So maybe doing it one time out of the state, another time in the state. But I tell you all this to just help you understand what the individual decisions are behind injectables or any kind of non invasive skincare procedure. They're doing so many things now. They're taking fat out of areas of your face. They're adding a little bit of volume to the cheeks. One of the things that I'm thinking of in the future is doing a little volume in the cheeks so that I can get rid of the fold here in my nasal labial area. That's a funny term to say. Try saying that multiple times. So nasal labial fold, that's the next thing that kind of bothers me a little bit. We lose a lot of our volume in the bone over time. So that starts to age you. So a little bit of a lift can be helpful. But again, I'm not quite ready for it. And I'm not sure that I really want to go down the filler road. I will tell you this. There is a process that starts to happen to people where they get more and more of this type of thing done, and then they don't see how odd it can look when you do too much. So, finding someone who does this very naturally and who really listens to you and is not just out to make a pretty penny and is honest to you about what you should spend your money on and how far you should go is important. Again, I'm in the industry, so I see a lot of these people who have taken it a bit too far, maybe done too much filler in the lips, and then they go back and they have it reduced. I am of the mindset that the more natural you are, the better. So if none of this is necessary for you and you feel good about yourself and there's nothing you want to improve, don't do it. Stay away from it. It's not necessary. And in fact, a lot of times men don't really love it. My husband, when he even hears that I've done Botox or anything like that, he just doesn't get it. He's not for it at all. So probably if I go the filler route, I don't even know what he'd say about it. Again, it's all about you. It's about making you feel better about yourself. I'm on screen a lot. I have to record trainings a lot. People are looking at my pores. They're really looking at my face. So for me, if it's something that bothers me, it's worth doing it. This has to be a personal decision, and I'm not either pro or against injectables or even plastic surgery. It's really about what your needs are. Just know that there is that boundary where you can go a little too far. So make sure to stay on the other side of it. All right, that's my story. If you decide to do Botox or you have decided to do Botox, tell me all about it. I'd like to hear about your experience and whether or not you're going to keep doing it and if it's important to you. Thanks for joining me.